The gates sealed shut behind him with a sound like a planetary shield locking into place. The impact shuddered to the floor, echoing up into the stands, and the crowd of billions roared at the finality of it. Commander Ryland K. did not look back. The Colossus arena stretched before him like a wound carved into space. Its walls were forged of alloy blacker than night, lined with banners from alien empires that fought here and won. Above, a transparent canopy revealed a swollen red giant the station orbited, its fire bleeding to the arena in crimson shafts of light. Dust motes shimmered in that glow, suspended as though time itself had paused for the spectacle. The stands brimmed with life. Rows of reptilian warlords rattled their plated chests in derision. Insectoid cliques chittered and hissed, antennae twitching with eager hunger. Avian aristocrats spread jeweled wings, as though the fight were theater, not slaughter. Other beings, crystalline or silicon, pulsed faintly with inner light, their eyes faceted, expressionless. They were united only in contempt for the lone human standing in the center, small, fragile, already trembling. Their voices poured to the translators, layered mockery that filled the air like smoke. Ryland kept walking, boots tapping in steady rhythm. His uniform bore no insignia, only the dark gray fabric of discarded soldier. His left cheek was split by an old scar, silver under the light. His stride was slow but unbroken, his hands loose at his sides. To the audience, it looked like resignation. To Ryland, it was defiance. He had walked into battlefields where artillery carved the horizon into firestorms, where orbital bombardments reduced cities to shadows. This was different. There, his men had stood with him. Here, there was no one else. Humanity's entire reputation had been shoved onto his shoulders, and if he stumbled, Earth's colonies would be branded prey for eternity. From the far side of the arena, a throne rose on mechanical arms. Its occupant leaned forward, reptilian eyes gleaming in the harsh light. Archlord Vathar, master of Kroth Dominion, his armored frame towering even while seated. His crest of bone spines fanned open like a predator, displaying dominance. Behold! Vathar's voice thundered, amplified across every translator node, the last spark of fading species. A hairless ape, thrown before true predators. His mouth split into rows of serrated teeth. This is mercy. His blood will end the Terran delusion of worth. The crowd answered with laughter, a sound more terrifying than any weapon. Ryland tilted his head back, meeting the warlord's gaze. His voice, unamplified, carried through the silence between jeers. You're wrong. That was all. No flourish, no insult. Just steady denial. It was enough to hush part of the crowd. Not for long, but long enough for a flicker of unease to ripple through them. Ryland's mind remained still. He remembered the tribunal that had discharged him. His refusal to burn a city of innocence. Dishonor, they called it. Weakness, they accused. Now that same galaxy called his entire species weak. He had taken this challenge not to redeem his career, but because someone had to stand and say no, even if it killed him. The floor beneath him began to vibrate. A low, grinding resonance rolled to the arena as titanic gates on each side trembled. Chains clanked, locks disengaged, hydraulics howled. The crowd rose to its feet, anticipation rising in a wave that shook the structure. From his throne, Vathar raised a clawed hand, released the first beast. A gate yawned open. Darkness inside seemed alive, swallowing light. Then a roar split the air, raw, primal, a sound forged in breeding pits where war was sculpted from flesh. The creature stepped forward. It was enormous. Scales ridged like plates of living armor, each claw the length of a human forearm. Heat shimmered from its breath as it snarled, saliva dripping onto the floor where it hissed like acid. Its eyes locked onto Ryland with a predator's certainty. The certainty of the kill. The stands erupted. Alien voices overlapping. Wagers shouted. Victory assured before the fight began. Ryland did not move. The beast thundered forward, claws screeching against the alloy floor. Dust exploded with every impact of its feet. The sound swallowed the arena. The distance closed in seconds. Still, Ryland stood motionless. He felt his heartbeat, slow and steady, each breath measured. His eyes never wavered from the creatures. He had done this before, not here, not with a beast of the scale, but with predators back home, wolves in the Arctic, feral dogs in war-torn streets, the kind of moments when running meant death. You stared them down. You told them without words, I am not prey. The brute slowed. Its claws screeched to a halt inches from his chest. Hot breath washed over him, sulfur and blood thickened the air. The crowd screamed, urging it to tear him apart. But the creature froze. Muscles quivered. Its eyes dilated and narrowed, and then impossibly, it lowered its massive head to the floor. A hush spread like a shockwave. Billions of voices fell silent in disbelief. On his throne, Vathar's spine flattened, his jaw clenched. Ryland exhaled once, slow. Not relief, confirmation. Another gate thundered open. The warlord's snarl carried over the translators. Again! From the shadows, a second predator emerged, sleek, wolf-shaped, plated with bone ridges, its movements liquid, lethal. It circled him, low growls rumbling through the floor. Saliva hung from jagged teeth as it stalked, tail lashing. Ryland shifted, turning with it. He moved the way he had been trained. Not panicked, not aggressive, just steady, mirroring. His shoulders angled, his gaze unbroken. The beast closed in, snapping jaws inches from his face. He didn't blink. The growl wavered. The wolf beast paused and lowered itself, head pressed the floor beside the first. The arena detonated with confusion. Some screamed in rage, others in awe. Translators buzzed with alien curses and fearful questions. What is happening? What does it mean? Ryland said nothing. He looked past them all, past the crowd, straight at the throne. Vathar rose halfway from his seat, his scaled fists clenched. The gates began to shake again. This time, more than one. Ryland turned back to the floor as shadows moved behind the bars. Chitin gleamed, antennae twitched, mandibles clacked in unison. A swarm. And the arena roared for blood. The floor split open in multiple places at once. From the dark pits below, the swarm poured upward. Hundreds of insectoid forms crawled into the arena, their armored bodies glinting under the red giant's glare. Mandibles clicked in rhythmic waves. Antennae twitched as if tasting the air. The crowd surged to its feet, shrieking with triumph. Now he dies, voices laid across 1,000 tongues. Ryland stood where he had been, boots planted firmly. The heat of the lamps burned the back of his neck, but he did not shift. His eyes traced the advancing tide. Segmented legs scuttling, curved talons digging grooves into the alloy floor. From above, Vathar's voice thundered. One creature might hesitate, two might falter, but the swarm does not yield. He spread his claws wide, let the galaxy watch the Terran finally devoured. Laughter cascaded across the arena. The sound was so loud it rattled the steel beneath Ryland's feet. The swarm tightened its formation, antennae quivering in unison. The air filled with their clattering, an unnatural chorus that set teeth on edge. They pressed closer, closing the circle around the lone human. Ryland lowered his chin. His breath slowed. He could almost hear the pounding of his own pulse in the silence beneath their noise. Not panic, calculation. He remembered deserts where swarms of carrion birds circled, waiting for the weak to collapse. He remembered nights in ruined cities where feral packs closed in on stragglers. The same principle applied. Do not break. Do not flinch. Make them recognize you. The closest insectoid halted, its limbs trembling, its mandibles spread, releasing a hiss that might have been warning or submission. Ryland stared directly at it, shoulders squared, presence steady. Then it lowered its head. The ripples spread like shock through the formation. One after another, mandibles clicked shut, antennae bent downward. Dozens, then hundreds of armored beasts bowed before him, the metallic floor echoing with their unified movement. The crowd gasped in one collective intake of breath. The sound cut off the laughter, silenced the taunts. Even the commentators, whose voices had been filling the arena with analysis, fell mute. Billions of aliens sat in disbelief as the swarm knelt. Ryland didn't smile. He didn't move. He let the silence stretch, the sight sink in. The galaxy needed time to choke on what it was seeing. On his throne, Vathar rose to his full height, spines flaring like jagged banners. His tail lashed against the steel beside him. Rage twisted his features. This is no victory, he bellowed. This is illusion. His claws pointed downward at the bowed swarm. They are broken stock. Defective. Release the necks. The gates shuddered again, larger this time. Chains clattered. Locks disengaged. The ground shaking under the strain. The audience leaned forward, their earlier disbelief colliding with new anticipation. Some shouted in denial, others in awe. A voice carried through the translators from a crystalline cluster. No beast bows. It cannot be. Ryland's gaze stayed fixed on the gate. He didn't answer their cries. His stillness was answer enough. The grinding of gears grew louder. A shadow filled the threshold. The gate buckled outward under sheer weight before finally yielding. The creature that stepped through dwarfed the others. Wolf-like in shape, but built like a siege engine. Its body was layered with overlapping bone ridges, each ridge marked by scars from past battles. Its maw was wide enough to swallow a manhole, saliva hissing as it struck the floor. Its yellow eyes fixed on him with unblinking hunger. The crowd erupted again, voices returning with renewed bloodlust. Rip him apart. Tear the ape limb from limb. Finally, the end. The beast moved with lethal precision, circling him as if it had been born for this very moment. Each step left dents in the alloy floor. Its growls reverberated through the air, low and resonant, shaking dust loose from the rafters above. Ryland shifted slightly, turning with it. His boots scraped once across the floor. His movements were calm, mirrored, precise. His body carried no weapon, but the set of his shoulders, the steadiness of his gaze, declared intent. The wolf beast snapped its jaws inches from his face, hot breath rolling over him. The sound cracked like thunder through the arena. He did not blink. For a moment the tension stretched until it felt unbearable, a thread ready to snap. Then, with a low growl that quivered into silence, the beast lowered its head, pressing its ridged skull against the floor. A roar of confusion spread through the stands. Not triumph, confusion. Some screamed that it was impossible. Others shouted that it was rigged. Even the commentators stumbled, their words breaking into static. The first brute remained bowed. The swarm stayed crouched, antennae pressed the ground. And now the wolf beast joined them, massive frame bent low before the solitary human, who had not moved more than a step. Billions of eyes turned toward the throne. Vathar's claws tore grooves into the arm of his seat. His voice thundered again, this time less controlled. Enough! Release the Titan. Crush this farce before it infects the galaxy with lies. The audience hushed instantly. Even those who had jeered stopped at the mention of the Titan. A ripple of dread moved through the stands. Ryland lifted his chin toward the gate that had begun to quake. His pulse slowed again, his mind sharpening to a point. The beasts were not tricks. They were not illusions. They had seen him, and they had understood. Now the galaxy would see what came next. The arena shook before the Titan even appeared. Deep within the gates, chains snapped one by one, echoing like thunderclaps. Hydraulic locks screamed as ancient mechanisms strained to contain something that had not been loose in decades. The audience went silent, every throat constricted by the same instinctual dread. Ryland stood alone in the vast circle of alloy floor. Around him, the swarm and the wolf beast remained bowed, their armored bodies trembling as if the very vibrations unsettled them. The gate burst outward. A wall of steam rolled into the arena, fogging the air. For within the haze came a sound, low, guttural, endless. Not a roar, but something deeper, older. The Titan emerged. It towered 3 stories tall, every step shaking the foundations beneath. Its frame resembled a gorilla wrought from plated obsidian, arms dragging riveted chains still attached to broken locks. Its chest expanded with each breath, venting heat in great waves. A skull-like face jutted forward, tusks curling upward into cruel hooks. Its eyes glowed with molten amber, casting beams through the mist. The crowd erupted at last, their fear transmuted into mania. Titan! 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 Above them, Vathar spread his claws triumphant. Behold the end of Terran arrogance. Not even beasts bow to the Titan. Only death follows where it walks. Ryland tilted his head back, meeting the monster's blazing gaze. His pulse beat steady, like war drums within his chest. The Titan was no ordinary beast. Its presence radiated dominance, a crushing pressure that forced even the armored wolf beast to flatten itself lower to the ground. Yet it did not bow. The Titan's stare locked on him. In it, Ryland recognized intelligence, an alien cunning sharpened by pain and centuries of forced slaughter. This was no mere animal. The giant pounded its chest, the sound like cannon fire, then hurled a broken chain to the ground with force that left the floor cracked. The shock wave nearly knocked Ryland from his stance, but he steadied himself, boots grinding against steel. The Titan charged. Its massive knuckles struck the floor, propelling its body forward with horrifying speed. Each stride devoured meters. The air screamed as its tusks cut through it. Ryland pivoted sideways, narrowly avoiding the first impact. The Titan's fist slammed into the ground, sending shrapnel flying. Metal curled like torn cloth. The audience roared approval. Fight him. Bleed him. Ryland moved fast, skirting the circle, forcing the Titan to adjust its bulk. His breathing remained measured, movements deliberate. To flee would mark him prey. To charge blindly would mean death. He needed the same stillness that had broken the others. The Titan wheeled, massive arms sweeping across the arena. Ryland dug beneath it, rolling as the wind of its strike rattled his bones. He rose quickly, eyes fixed on the beast. "Why don't you kneel?" he muttered under his breath. The Titan snarled, baring tusks slick with spittle. It slammed both fists down. The shock lifted him from his feet, hurling him backward. His shoulder hit the floor, pain sparking through bone. He gritted his teeth, forcing his body to rise before the Titan closed the distance. Above, Vathar laughed, voice carrying across every speaker. Even the swarm bent their heads. The Titan does not. Humanity is not king here. It is meat. Ryland steadied himself. The arena floor was torn into trenches where the Titan's fist had struck. Steam vented from the creature's back in ragged bursts. He realized then the Titan was not simply raging. It was testing him. Each strike measured his reaction. Each roar gauged his fear. Its intelligence sharpened the air between them into something more than combat. Ryland took a single step forward. The crowd fell quiet again, uncertain. Another step. He was within striking distance now, close enough that the beast's hot breath rolled over him. The Titan loomed higher, arms tense, claws gouging the floor. Its tusks glinted under the floodlights, ready to impale. And Ryland did not stop. He stood directly before it, head tilted back, eyes unyielding. His chest rose and fell in calm rhythm. His stance held no weapon, no threat. Only defiance carried in silence. Seconds stretched. The arena seemed to hold its breath. The Titan's growl tapered into a rumble. Its claws lifted, then hesitated. The molten light in its eyes flared, and then dimmed. Slowly, impossibly, the monster bent its knees. The floor groaned under its weight as it lowered its massive frame. Finally, with a crash that sent vibrations through the arena, the Titan's skull bowed to the human before it. The silence shattered. Gasps, shrieks, curses flooded the air. Some clawed at the railings in disbelief. Others screamed that their gods had betrayed them. Billions watched across the galaxy, and for once, there was no unity in their voices. Only chaos. On the throne, Vathar froze. His spines retracted involuntarily, betraying a primal fear he could not mask. His voice faltered when he tried to speak. No, it cannot. Ryland remained still, letting the moment carve itself into history. Around him, every beast, the swarm, the wolf, and now the Titan, was bowed. He lifted his chin, eyes locking on Vathar. For the first time, he spoke loud enough for the translators to carry his voice across the galaxy. You call us meat? His words rang like steel against stone. But you forget, we are the ones who look monsters in the eye and do not break. The crowd trembled with the weight of it. Some tried to drown his words in jeers. Others fell silent, shaken by something they could not explain. The Titan did not rise. Ryland knew the war had shifted in that moment. Not with blades, not with fleets, with recognition. And Vathar knew it too. The Emperor's claws curled into fists, voice twisting with fury. Guards, prepare the executioner's fleet. If the beast will not kill him, fire will consume him. The galaxy must not see this. But it already had. The arena did not erupt in cheers. It convulsed in chaos. Entire sections of the crowd shouted accusations of heresy. Others demanded the Emperor explain why his most feared creature had bowed to a human. Fights broke out between species, some clawing, some shrieking, some collapsing in shock. Billions across the galaxy argued in real time, translators struggling to contain the storm of disbelief. On the floor, Ryland did not move. He stood in the eye of the tempest, surrounded by kneeling beasts. Their massive bodies formed a ring around him, as though the creatures themselves had sworn to shield him from what came next. Above, Emperor Vathar clutched the edge of his throne. His talons cut grooves into the alloy armrest. His voice cracked with fury when it finally returned. The spectacle ends now. The lights in the arena flared crimson. Sirens howled across the dome. From hidden ports in the ceiling, batteries of plasma cannons unfolded, targeting the circle below. Warships shifted in orbit, their silhouettes visible through the glass canopy above. Weapons adjusting toward the single man standing among the beasts. The crowd froze. They knew the Emperor's rage when it boiled past reason. Ryland's gaze never left the throne. You can burn me alive in front of them all, he called out, voice steady, amplified by the translators. But they've already seen what you fear. You can't erase it. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The Emperor bared his fangs. Silence, ape. One of the counselors leaned toward him, mandibles clattering nervously. Sire, if you kill him now, it confirms a fear. They will whisper that even your Titan recognized Terran supremacy. Then I will kill the whispers too, Vathar snarled. Another counselor, crystalline body shimmering uneasily, interjected. If you execute him in the arena, he becomes a martyr. Billions saw the beast kneel. Billions will wonder why. Vathar's spines rattled with rage. So you counsel I let this infection spread? The counselors fell silent, unwilling to push further. The Emperor's glare swept over them, daring anyone else to speak. On the floor, the Titan rumbled, shifting its weight. It had not risen since bowing. Its molten eyes, however, tracked the cannons above, as if recognizing the betrayal of being used against the very one it had chosen to acknowledge. Ryland sensed the moment fracturing. He raised his voice again, each word sharp, deliberate. You claim dominance because you rule beasts through chains and blood. Humanity rules differently. We win not by breaking them, but by standing unbroken before them. The words struck the air like hammers. Some in the stands hissed, others chanted his defiance, carried by something primal. Vathar roared, cutting through the noise. Enough! Guards! Doors burst open around the arena rim. Dozens of armored soldiers poured in, weapons trained on Rylan. Their armor gleamed in the floodlights, ornate and cruel. Forged to terrify as much as to protect. The beast stirred. The wolf beast bared its ridged fangs, a low growl resonating deep in its chest. The swarm shifted, antennae twitching, mandibles clicking as they closed ranks. The titan's fists pressed into floor, not rising but bracing, as though waiting for a signal. Kill him, Vathar commanded. Slaughter him and grind his bones into dust. The soldiers advanced. Rylan inhaled slowly, the air sharp with ozone from the charged plasma cannons above. His eyes locked with the titan's glowing orbs. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then the monster shifted its massive skull in a gesture unmistakable to human instinct, an invitation, a vow. The soldiers fired, but the swarm surged first. Hundreds of insectoid bodies slammed into the advancing troops, claws and mandibles tearing through alloy plating. Plasma bolts seared the air, cutting some down, but more crawled over walls, overwhelming the lines. The wolf beast leapt, intercepting a squad before they could flank. Its jaws crushed armor, tossing bodies aside. And then the titan rose. The ground quaked as its massive form straightened, breaking the air with a roar that rattled the heavens. One sweeping arm flattened a formation of soldiers, bodies scattering like leaves in a storm. Plasma bolts struck its hide, burning scars but not stopping its fury. The crowd erupted in hysteria. Some cheering, some shrieking, many fleeing the stands in panic. Billions of streams across the galaxy blurred with static as sensors overloaded. Rylan remained in the center, the storm circling him. The beasts weren't merely resisting. They were defending him. He lifted his voice once more, aimed directly at the throne. You see it now, Emperor. The chains are broken. They bow by choice. That is power you'll never understand. Vathar's claws lashed the air. Shut him down. Fire the cannons. The plasma batteries above charge, humming with lethal energy. Blinding light pooled at their tips. Rylan did not flinch. He knew what came next. If the cannons fired, the beasts and he would be obliterated together. But perhaps that was the point. Better to die as proof than live in chains. Then the titan raised its arms skyward. It roared, a sound so loud it cracked the glass canopy overhead. The force of its bellow disrupted the cannon's targeting systems, the beams swerving off course. One cannon misfired, searing a swath across the stands, scattering panicked spectators. The Emperor's composure finally cracked. For the first time, fear bled through his fury. He slammed a fist into his throne and hissed to his aides. Pull the feeds. Cut the transmissions. No one beyond this arena must see another second. But it was too late. Billions had already seen enough. The vision of beasts kneeling and armies faltering before a single human had already embedded itself in memory, spreading faster than any broadcast could be silenced. Rylan lowered his voice, speaking almost himself though the translators carried it outward. They can cut the feeds, but they can't unsee. The titan stood like a fortress beside him, chest heaving, eyes burning. The swarm clung to the soldiers, the wolf beast prowled, and the Emperor's forces reeled in disarray. The arena was no longer a stage for execution. It had become the spark of rebellion. The arena was no longer a theater of spectacle. It had become a battlefield. Smoke curled to the shattered canopy above. Sirens blared, drowning out the screams of the crowd as they stampeded toward the exits. The swarm shredded squad of soldiers. The wolf beast dragged armored troopers into its jaws, and the titan's roar shook the metal dome with every blow it struck. Still, the Emperor's fury did not waver. Vathar stood tall upon his throne, spines flaring, voice amplified across every broken speaker. Do not falter. Kill the beasts. Kill the ape. His words were drowned by chaos, but his orders still carried weight. Reinforcements stormed the lower gates, heavier weapons in hand, pulse cannons, concussion grenades, and flamethrowers. Their disciplined formation cut through the swarm with brutal efficiency, driving the creatures back step by step. Rylan knew the tide could not hold forever. For every soldier felled, 3 more entered the arena. Even the titan's strength could not endure endless fire. He turned his eyes upward. The Emperor remained untouched, flanked by guards, watching with venomous hate. Killing Rylan had become less important than breaking the image he represented. If the beast fell, if the Terran was torn down, the symbol would die with him. The thought hardened his resolve. He moved toward the titan, dodging debris and bolts of plasma. The creature lowered its head as he approached, its molten gaze locking onto his. We can't win here, Rylan said, his voice barely audible over the din, but we can show them the way. The titan rumbled, chest vibrating with a sound that resonated like agreement. It raised one massive hand and slammed it against the wall of the arena. The steel cracked, sending shockwaves through the structure. The crowd shrieked as fragments of the dome rained down. The wolf beast darted to Ryland's side, its ridged frame shielding him from a burst of plasma fire. The swarm reformed around him, battered but unbroken, clicking in rhythm like an army awaiting command. Ryland realized then that this was no longer survival. It was command. They were looking to him. He pointed toward the fractured wall. Through there. Break it open. The Titan roared and struck again. Steel buckled. Supports groaned, and with a final devastating blow, the wall collapsed outward. Dust and sunlight poured in, revealing the alien city beyond. Gleaming towers. Sprawling markets. Millions of citizens watching in terror and awe as the battle spilled into their streets. The beast surged forward, scattering the Emperor's soldiers, forcing them into retreat. Citizens screamed, scattering like waves before the flood. Yet not all ran. Some stopped, transfixed by the sight of the beast moving not in chains, but in unison, following a human who walked at their center. Vathar's rage exploded. Seal the city, block every transmission. I want him buried beneath the rubble. But the transmissions were already loose. Across the galaxy, every feed carried the impossible image. The Titan and its kin marching beside a Terran, soldiers faltering, the Emperor shouting in fear rather than triumph. For the first time in generations, the galaxy saw Vathar not as untouchable but as vulnerable. Blasts shook the ground. Gunships screamed overhead, their cannons tearing into buildings to cut off escape. Plasma fire carved molten streaks across the streets. The beast scattered into alleys, breaking into smaller packs. The Titan shielded Ryland with its massive body, taking the brunt of bombardment. Ryland shouted above the noise. We can't fight the city. We need to vanish. The wolf beast barked, a harsh, resonant sound, and darted into a side passage. The swarm followed, crawling along walls and ceilings, clearing the path. The Titan brought up the rear, its colossal form smashing through barriers too narrow for its bulk. They plunged into the Undercity, where the lights dimmed and the sounds of battle dulled into echoes. Here, civilians hid in shadows, eyes wide as they saw the impossible procession. Some pressed themselves against the walls in fear, but others whispered in awe. He walked with the Titan. The beast bowed. Perhaps the humans are not broken after all. The words followed him like sparks in dry grass. Finally, they reached a cavernous chamber, a forgotten maintenance hub, abandoned and dark. The Titan collapsed onto one knee, wounded from the bombardment, its body steaming from half a dozen plasma strikes. The swarm gathered around it, their antennae brushing its scarred hide in something that looked like mourning. Ryland approached, placing a hand on the Titan's arm. The heat of its body nearly burned his skin, but he did not pull away. You've done enough, he whispered. Rest now. The beast's amber eyes dimmed, but not before fixing on him one last time. It lowered its skull until it touched the ground, then exhaled a final rumble that vibrated through his bones. And then it was still. Ryland stood in silence, grief pressing against his chest. Around him, the swarm shifted uneasily, and even the wolf beast lowered its head. Above them, the city thundered with continuing battle. But here, in the shadows, a truth had been written in blood and fire. The Titan had chosen to bow, and the Emperor had been powerless to undo it. Ryland turned to Wolf and the swarm. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. The galaxy saw. They'll remember, and they'll rise. The wolf growled softly, a sound more like agreement than menace. The swarm clicked in steady rhythm, a chorus of strange loyalty. From a broken terminal in the corner of the chamber, a voice crackled through. The counselor, crystalline form, one of the few who had dared defy the Emperor in whispers. Commander Cade, the voice said, distorted but urgent. You must leave the city. The Emperor has declared you a contagion. But know this, the feeds were not fully cut. The vision spread. Across systems, murmurs grow. You are no longer just a prisoner. You are the spark. Ryland exhaled, shoulders heavy with the weight of what he carried. Then the galaxy will burn brighter than he can contain. He stepped forward, beasts flanking him like an honor guard. The path ahead was uncertain, but he understood something the Emperor never would. Power was not in chains. It was in the moment beasts, whether man or monster, chose to kneel without them. And once seen, that choice could never be unseen.